The sound of clinking glasses filled the dimly lit bar, mingling with laughter, the low hum of country rock, and the faint scent of fried onions. The old wooden floor creaked under heavy boots as the clock struck noon. The Iron Horse Tavern wasn't just another roadside bar. It was a quiet escape for bikers, travelers, and people who didn't fit anywhere else. On the other side of the counter stood Lena, a young waitress in her mid-20s, with tired eyes that still held a spark of hope. She worked double shifts every day, smiling at strangers while silently counting every dollar to pay for her mother's medicines. But this wasn't an ordinary afternoon. It was about to become the longest, scariest moment of her life, and the most unforgettable one for everyone watching. Before we dive deeper, if you believe in kindness, justice, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Exposed Tales. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Now, back to the story. Lena was wiping the counter when the door swung open with a bang that made everyone turn. A big man stepped in. Rex, broad-shouldered, covered in tattoos, his boots heavy enough to make the floorboards groan. His presence filled the room instantly, loud, overbearing, the kind of man who enjoyed being feared. A half-smile twisted his face as he scanned the bar and finally landed his eyes on Lena. She froze for a second, the rag in her hand trembling slightly. He walked up to the counter, his voice sharp and mocking. "Coffee, black, and make it fast." Lena nodded softly and poured him a cup, hoping to stay unnoticed. But Rex wasn't the kind of man to let silence win. He leaned over the counter, his breath heavy with beer and arrogance. "You new here, sweetheart?" he asked. When she didn't respond, he slammed his hand on the counter. "I asked you a question!" The room grew quiet. A few regulars glanced up but quickly looked away. Everyone knew men like Rex. And everyone knew. Better than to interfere. Lena swallowed hard and whispered, "Just working my shift, sir." He chuckled darkly. "Sir? That's cute. You think being polite will save you?" She felt her heart pounding. Every second stretched like a lifetime. But across the room, a group of men sat quietly, wearing leather vests with a familiar red patch, Hell's Angels. They had been talking among themselves, laughing a few minutes ago. But now they watched, eyes narrowing, the air thickening with tension. Rex's voice grew louder, mocking her, throwing words sharp as knives. "You think you can ignore me? You think you're better than me?" He stood, knocking over his chair, spilling beer across the bar. His tone turned threatening. "Let's see who can save you now." Lena took a step back, her hands trembling. She looked around, everyone still silent. Fear wrapped around her chest like a chain. Then came a voice, calm, steady, and deep. "Hey!" The room turned toward the corner booth. A tall man with grey-streaked hair and arms covered in faded tattoos rose to his feet. He wore a patched leather jacket that read Hell's Angels, San Diego. His name was Mick, and though he hadn't said a word all afternoon, his presence alone was enough to shift the atmosphere. Rex turned toward him, smirking. "What, you gonna play hero, old man?" Mick didn't answer immediately. He took a slow sip from his glass, set it down carefully, and said, "You walked into the wrong bar." Rex laughed. "Is that a threat?" Mick stepped forward, not rushing, not shouting, just walking with the kind of calm that made even the loudest men step back. The rest of the bikers stood too, their boots hitting the floor in unison. Lena's eyes widened. For the first time that day, she felt she wasn't alone. Rex clenched his fists, ready to fight, but before he could move, Mick's hand landed on his shoulder, firm as steel. "Apologize," he said quietly. Rex scoffed. "To her? She's just a—" The word never finished. Mick's gaze hardened, and another biker, Tony, stepped closer. "Watch your mouth, brother," he said. "We don't disrespect women here." The bar was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, the kind of silence that weighs more than sound. Rex looked around, the room now full of men who weren't afraid of him. He tried to laugh it off, but his voice shook. All right, relax, man." Mick leaned closer. You came in here trying to prove you're strong, but strength isn't about scaring people smaller than you. It's about protecting them. Rex looked down, muttering something under his breath. Sorry, he finally said, his voice low. Say it right, Tony growled. Rex turned toward Lena, his face red. I'm sorry. Lena nodded slightly, her heart still racing. Mick took a step back, eyes still locked on Rex. Now finish your drink and leave. Rex hesitated for a second, then grabbed his jacket and stormed out. The door slammed behind him, and the bar exhaled a collective breath of relief. Lena stood there frozen, trying to process what had just happened. The adrenaline, the fear, the sudden peace, it all hit her at once. Her eyes filled with tears, but not of pain, of gratitude. Mick turned to her gently. You all right, sweetheart? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yeah, thank you. He smiled faintly. Don't thank me. Thank respect. Every man here's got a sister, a mother, or a daughter. We don't let anyone forget that. The rest of the bikers returned to their seats, the atmosphere softening again. One of them called out jokingly, Put her next round on me. The laughter returned, the clinking of glasses resumed, but something had changed in that bar forever. Lena served their drinks, her hands still trembling a little. She couldn't stop thinking about how close she'd come to something awful, and how strangers had stood up for her when no one else dared. That night, as she closed up, Mick stayed behind to help her put away chairs. He told her how most of the men there had seen darkness, rough pasts, broken homes and bad choices. But we're not defined by what we did, he said quietly. We're defined by what we choose to do now. Those words stayed with Lena long after the lights went out. Days passed. The story of what happened spread through the small town like wildfire. People whispered about the waitress who'd been defended by the Hells Angels. Some called it a miracle, others a warning. But for Lena, it was something deeper, a reminder that not all rough faces hide cruel hearts. She started seeing the bikers more often. They'd drop by for coffee, check on her, leave generous tips. It wasn't about money, it was about presence, the kind of silent brotherhood that didn't need to be spoken about. One afternoon, she brought her mother to the bar. The old woman smiled shyly as Mick helped her sit down. Your daughter's tougher than she looks, he said kindly. Her mother nodded. She always was. Lena felt something warm bloom inside her, something like belonging. That night, as the bikers rode off into the sunset, the roar of their engines echoing across the valley, she watched from the doorway with a quiet smile. The world still had good men, men who stood for something real. Weeks later, Rex showed up again, but this time sober and quiet. He waited outside until Lena finished her shift. Can I talk to you? He asked. Lena hesitated but nodded. He took a deep breath. I'm sorry, not just for that day, for the way I've been living. I lost my job, my wife left, I was angry at everyone. You didn't deserve that. Lena studied his face. For the first time he didn't look dangerous, he just looked lost. Thank you for saying that, she said softly. He nodded, then turned to leave, but stopped. Those bikers, they scared the hell out of me, but they also made me think, maybe it's time I fix things. And with that, he walked away, leaving Lena standing under the fading neon light, a strange sense of peace washing over her. Months later, the Iron Horse Tavern had changed. It wasn't just a bar anymore, it had become a place of safety and connection. Travelers came and went, stories were told, and laughter echoed nightly. Lena still worked there, but now with confidence in her step and warmth in her smile. Every time she saw those leather jackets walk in, she felt grateful. Life had tested her, but it had also shown her that kindness can come from the most unexpected hearts, and justice can rise even in the roughest places. So if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Exposed Tales. Every view, every comment helps spread the message that real strength is protecting others, not hurting them. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what does true courage mean to you?